Humanity has had many near misses over the course of history, some confirmed, but there are likely countless other occasions which have gone unknown, with us blissfully unaware that we were even in danger. We've likely had asteroids miss us by the astronomical equivalent of a hair's width, or on a more personal level, been at risk of injury or death without even knowing it. Most, I would imagine, would much prefer not to know when their life will come to an end. However, have you ever had to face the imminent reality of your own mortality? Being aware that you have mere moments before life as you know it comes to an end. How would you feel, or what would you do, if you were ever placed in this unfortunate situation? We can surmise or guess what our reaction would be, but we could never predict how we would truly behave in the heat of the moment. For most, they will never encounter this scenario outside of blockbuster science fiction movies or TV shows. For over 1 million people on a fateful day in 2018, fiction became reality. Hawaii is a state in the western United States, located in the Pacific Ocean about 2,000 miles or 3,200 kilometers from the US mainland. It's unique in many ways, being the only US state outside of North America, the only state which is an archipelago, and the only state geographically located within the tropics. 2/3 of the state's population live on Oahu, the third largest of the Hawaiian Islands. Oahu is home to the state's capital and largest city, Honolulu, which has a population of around 350,000 residents. Honolulu's favourable tropical climate, rich natural scenery, and extensive beaches make it a popular global destination for tourists. On the morning of Saturday, January 13th, 2018, Hawaii residents were enjoying their breakfasts and starting to go about their morning, just like any other day. Many were sleeping in after a busy week at work or school just after New Year's, and others were just having a relaxing start to the day with some coffee and a newspaper. This is exactly what one Hawaii resident was doing that fateful morning. Vern Miyagi, an ex-army general in his 60s, was sat in his house in Hawaii Kai, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, when the peace and quiet was interrupted by a sharp buzzing noise emanating from his coffee table. It turns out that the racket was coming from his 2 mobile phones, one of which he had for work and one for personal. The fact that both were going off at the same time couldn't have been good. He reached for the phones and is shocked to see the notification presented to him. On both screens simultaneously, there is a white box filled with black text. The message read as follows: "Emergency alert. Ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill." While deeply concerned, Vern was not panicked. This is because he was the administrator of the Hawaii Emergency Management System, and he knew that the individuals that worked for him must have sent the alert. However, strangely, no one had called him to warn him of the alert. A week ago, his team began testing an undulating alert siren to differentiate between a missile alert and a tsunami warning, but he could not hear any sirens. Having been in the army for 37 years, Miyagi could easily differentiate between realistic threats and improbable ones. North Korea were the closest nuclear threat, being 5,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers away, and 2,000 miles closer to Pyongyang than Washington DC. On a commercial plane, that journey would take nearly 10 hours, flying at a rate of 500 miles per hour. However, for a nuclear ICBM, or intercontinental ballistic missile, the warhead could reach Hawaii in just 20 minutes. Images of the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor no doubt flashed through his mind, so this was not without precedent, although the Pearl Harbor attack was not nuclear in nature. However, the more logical side of Miyagi's mind kicked in at a moment's notice. Historically, North Korea wanted nuclear capabilities to deter an American attack and invasion. He surmises that their targeting technology would also have likely been primitive, and a precise attack would not be possible. Additionally, any attack from the North Koreans would have almost certainly resulted in their annihilation, and their leader, Kim Jong-un, had also agreed to send athletes to the Olympics just 5 days ago. Surely, he thought, this can't be real. Miyagi tells his wife and grandchildren to take shelter and hunker down, while he tries to get to his team and check what's going on. The following is the official account, although, as we will cover later, some are unconvinced. Minutes earlier that same morning, 3 members of his team started their shift at 8 a.m. They worked at the State Warning Point, or SWP. This was the location at which critical warnings are sent through a statewide alert system. Historically, these warnings had only been sent out for real in relation to severe storms and tsunamis. The SWP was a room of sophisticated monitoring equipment at the headquarters of the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency, a bunker etched into the side of Diamond Head Crater, a cone of land formed 500,000 years ago by an eruption of the Kohulahu volcano, with the volcano now being extinct. While clearly the staff hoped it would never happen, they had to plan for the remote possibility of a nuclear launch. There was a detailed and strict checklist 20 steps long, which would have come into effect after being notified by the military's Pacific Command. To ensure they were well prepared in case the unthinkable occurred, they performed regular drills. It just so happened that, allegedly, the supervisor for the overnight shift had decided to run such a pretend attack as a drill. At 8:06, the drill was initiated by a member of the night shifters, at which point one of the SWP workers put the call on loudspeaker. It began as follows: exercise, 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 at which point it would continue through a script that sounded like a real warning, then concluded again with exercise, exercise, exercise. The staff then followed the checklist as required, including steps such as anticipating the time of impact, activating a countdown, switching on the warning sirens, generating an alert to all cell phones and broadcast stations, and finally sealing the solid steel doors to the bunker. In such a drill, the steps would have all been simulated and not carried out for real. Buttons would not have been pushed to activate the warning sirens, nor seal the steel bunker doors. However, on this occasion, it's claimed, the SWP issued a live ballistic missile alert to the entire state by mistake. Understandably, the system does not allow the alert to be undone, as once a nuclear war starts, there's no calling it off. At this point, there was no turning back. As Miyagi was making his way to the SWP to understand the situation, the other Hawaii inhabitants, over 1 million of them, had received a message that they had never expected to receive. From their perspective, and for all they knew, a nuclear ballistic missile was travelling at 15,000 miles or 24,000 kilometers per hour towards them. They had just 20 minutes to live. All around the state, some people began to panic. Most, if not all, were in shock. This caused crazed running in the streets in a vain attempt to escape the destruction heading their way. Roads are gridlocked, the survival instinct taking over. Others were calmer, accepting their fates and simply wishing to spend their final moments with their families and loved ones. The phone system began to slow to a crawl and break down as texts and calls are exchanged in what everyone believes to be their last chance to express their feelings. For 38 long minutes, the residents of Hawaii were trying to come to terms with their own mortality. The possibility of this being a false alarm did not enter most people's minds, as there had been an uptick in nuclear rhetoric in recent years. Hawaii was well known as a key strategic position for the US military, and there was a noticeable presence on the island of Oahu in particular. Hawaii lawmakers had begun pushing the Department of Defense for assistance with nuclear disaster preparedness, which had not been a focus since the 1980s due to the Cold War. In what some would call prophetic, a 2017 article by popular American magazine The Atlantic called out the nuclear threat posed to Hawaii. For now, the nuclear threat Hawaii is facing is serious, but also still theoretical. North Korea hasn't explicitly demonstrated that Hawaii is a target the way it has with Japan. Back in Hawaii, the threat is real, but overblown by a perception that the Kim regime is crazy, and by North Korea's success in cultivating an image of extreme bravado. Joshua Pollack, editor of the Non-Proliferation Review, also commented on the worries. Look behind the rhetoric, and when it comes to nuclear weapons, North Korea has threatened only retaliation, not a first strike. They're more capable than we give them credit for, but they're sane. In 2009, resort officials on Lanai even ordered tourists off the beach because they feared a North Korean missile would hit there. Therefore, to the people of Hawaii, this was an ever-present worry in the back of their minds, but they never believed it would actually happen. And for those 38 minutes, as far as they were concerned, it was. At 8:45 a.m, another notification is received by the Hawaii residents, all of whom were fearfully awaiting the inevitable. It read, "There is no missile threat or danger to the state of Hawaii. Repeat, false alarm." The 15-word message seemed like it had been hastily written, judging by the odd capitalization and that the word repeat does not, in fact, precede anything being repeated in the cell phone version. But allegedly, it took 38 minutes to send out because a template had to be designed and then coded into the system. Additionally, the state thought it needed permission from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to send the message, which it didn't. As word quickly began to spread around the state, the shock, panic and resignation that had set in was replaced by a wave of relief. People cried and hugged, yelled in joy, and were eternally thankful that the final chapter had not been written in their lives. Days afterwards, the official reports were released on the incident. At the same time, Vern Miyagi resigned due to the turmoil that was created on his watch. The employee who sent the alert, who was not named, was also fired on the 26th of January of that year. Toby Claremont, the agency's executive officer, also stepped down, with another employee being suspended without pay. Pun fully intended, the fallout from this event was widespread. While mistakes happen all the time, and this was certainly one of the biggest ones you can make, there are some who suspect that there is more to this panic-inducing event than meets the eye. There are several peculiar or out-of-place points of interest which test the limits of believability, which we'll discuss now. Firstly, one of the employees on shift change at the time had accidentally selected the wrong item from a drop-down menu, ultimately causing the alert to be sent out later on. While this could be an easy mistake to make, questions can start to be raised by the fact that he reported he had done this twice. Secondly, that very same week, Japanese TV network NHK Television accidentally issued emergency alerts warning residents of a looming nuclear attack from North Korea, stating, "North Korea appears to have fired a missile. Seek shelter inside buildings and basements." Within moments, the network had corrected the alerts and apologised for the error. Again, the mistake was blamed on an employee who had triggered the warning in error. You would think that such an important and serious alert system would be intensely and painstakingly safeguarded, due to the fact that, as we saw with the Hawaii incident, it can cause widespread panic and fear. It is quite peculiar then that two such mistakes with the alert system in separate powerful countries would occur in the space of a single week. As far as wider conspiracy theories go, there is a very small minority who believe that this was in fact a cover-up for a real nuclear launch, which was thwarted before it could reach the island. However, there is no evidence for this whatsoever, simply being the subject of conjecture. Despite this, there is a larger group who believe that the missile alerts were carried out by the government to gather valuable data on how people would react to an imminent nuclear attack. This, they claim, is supported by the earlier peculiar points around the apparent ease of which it was possible to release such alerts, and that it was done by two separate world powers within days of each other. However, these remain as theories, and the official stance that these were alerts sent in error is widely accepted by the vast majority of the global population, being written off as a stark example of how badly things can go wrong if alert systems are not governed correctly. In summary, While clearly it's a huge relief that nuclear war did not start in Hawaii on that day in 2018, it's an interesting thought experiment nonetheless. For those terrible 38 minutes, over 1 million people would have known the answer to how they would react if they knew they were soon to die. The comforting result is that most decided to spend their last moments with their loved ones. With the proliferation of nuclear weapons since the latter half of the 20th century, we all hope that we will never have to experience the horror of a nuclear attack. Of course, in the current world environment, such alert systems are a necessity, and with any manual process, mistakes will creep in now and again. However, there are one or two things which seem out of place surrounding the Hawaii false alarm which don't seem right. It may simply be a coincidence or an unfortunate turn of events, but as the famous saying goes, there is no smoke without fire. We will never know the true answer to that question, and this incident will forever be infamous as what can happen when mistakes are made. Regardless of the cause or the potential conspiracies lurking behind it, it still poses considerable food for thought. How would you react if straight after watching this video, your phone begins to vibrate, containing a short but terrifying message?